Papoose is missing. Not from a studio, not from a tour bus, not from a booked-out schedule. He is missing from the exact moment his own name is being dragged through every radio station, every podcast, and every comment section in the culture right now. And nobody in his corner has an answer for where this man actually is. Claressa Shields, undisputed champion of the world, one of the most decorated boxers this country has ever produced, is standing in front of microphones getting hit with questions about him, about his job, about his marriage, about whether she is knowingly in a relationship with somebody's husband, and Papoose is where? Nowhere. Silent. Ghost. Gone. This is not a small detail. This is the entire story. The man who filed for divorce from Remy Ma back in May of 2025, the man who publicly claimed his own version of what happened in that marriage, the man who has been photographed at Claressa's birthday parties and press conferences with his hands all over her, that same man cannot find the courage, the coordination, or the basic respect to stand next to the woman he is publicly attached to and answer one single question about his own life. And everybody has been so busy screaming at Claressa, so busy demanding she defend herself, so busy asking her what does he do for a living, that nobody has stopped to ask the real question, the question that unlocks the entire situation. The question I promise you we are going to break all the way down before this video is over. Why is the person whose name is on every one of these interviews the only person who refuses to appear in any of them? Because I am telling you right now, the more you look at the timeline of every moment Claressa has been dragged in the last few months, the more you notice the same pattern repeating over and over, and the pattern is not about her. The pattern is about him. And when we get to the part of this video where I break down what he is actually protecting by staying silent, and I promise you, we are getting there, you are going to understand why every single move this man has made for the last 2 years has been calculated, not accidental, and why Claressa Shields, one of the greatest athletes alive, is being used as a shield in the most literal sense of the word. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the table for anybody just catching up, because this story has more layers than most people realize, and if you do not understand the full picture, you cannot understand why Papoose being missing right now is such a catastrophic tell on him. Papoose, born Shamil Mackey, is a rapper who has been in the game for over 2 decades, mostly known through his marriage to Remy Ma, one of the most respected female rappers of her generation. That marriage was culturally massive. They were the couple. They were the fairy tale. They were the he waited for her through prison, she came home. They built a family story that hip-hop held up as proof that love in this industry could actually work. And then in May of 2025, Papoose filed for divorce. He filed. Not her. Him. He walked into court and started the paperwork. And immediately after that, the story got messy in a way that nobody was ready for. Remy Ma got publicly linked to Easy the Block Captain, the battle rapper. Papoose got publicly linked to Claressa Shields, the boxing champion. And the fan base split down the middle trying to figure out who cheated first, who cheated worse, who was the villain, and who was telling the truth. Papoose, on record with outlets like Complex and Hot 97, has claimed that Remy cheated on him multiple times going back years, including after her release from prison in 2014. Remy has denied that framing and has publicly said Papoose is the one who was cheating, allegedly with Claressa, while they were still married. Easy the Block Captain has said, reportedly, that Papoose knew about the alleged affair between him and Remy for years, that Papoose was allegedly bugging her car, that the entire shocked husband storyline is a performance. So already you have a situation where the truth is contested from 3 different mouths, and the only way anybody was ever going to get clarity on any of it was if Papoose came out and stood on his own words in a real interview. He has not done that. Not consistently, not credibly, not on the record with the same intensity that Remy and Claressa have gone. Meanwhile, the stakes here are enormous. Claressa Shields is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed in multiple weight classes, one of the most decorated boxers on the planet. Her name is her business. Her name is her brand. Her name is what puts millions of dollars on a fight card. And she is out here on the Pivot podcast in July of 2025 talking about planning a baby with Papoose in 2026, going on Instagram defending the relationship, going on radio stations getting ambushed with questions about being with somebody's husband, carrying the entire narrative weight of this thing by herself. And the question that has been sitting there this entire time, the question that nobody in his camp will answer, the question that is now impossible to ignore, is very simple. Where is he? Now let us walk through what we actually have on the surface, because this is not a case where you have to squint to see the pattern. This is a case where the evidence is sitting right on top of the table, and every piece of it points in the same direction. Piece number 1. MC Shinika Richardson, a professional radio host at Streets 94.5, sat Claressa Shields down for an interview and asked her a direct, clean, professional question. How much longer are you willing to be in a relationship with somebody's husband? That question is not disrespectful. That question is the exact question every woman who has ever looked at this situation has asked in her own kitchen. And Claressa, to her credit, answered it. She defended herself. She said Papoose filed for divorce. She said that word is out there. She said he filed because he is serious about her. That interview went viral. That interview was played on The Breakfast Club. That interview was picked up by The Shade Room, by Hot 102.9, by every major platform in the culture. And where was Papoose during any of that? He was not sitting next to her defending her. He was not on a follow-up interview clarifying his side. He was not on his own Instagram going live to say, the woman I am with does not deserve this question. Here is the paperwork. Here is the truth. He was gone. Piece number 2. Claressa did an interview where she broke down on the record that Papoose is not her manager, that Papoose does not get a percentage of her fight check, that Papoose is not with her for a living situation. 3 things. 3 specific, itemized, on the record clarifications. And she called them, in her own words, 3 big lies that had been circulating about her relationship. Now think about that. She had to be the one to itemize the lies about him. Not him. Her. He was not in the room. He was not on the mic. He was not co-signing the statement. He was not producing the receipts. She had to carry it. Piece number 3. There was a period, reportedly, where Papoose was posting Claressa constantly on his Instagram, pictures, videos, tagging her, celebrating her, being all over her socials. And Claressa herself, in a public response, said that the hate in her inbox was becoming unbearable and reportedly warned that the constant posting was making things worse for her, not better. So even the times he was visible in the way that increased her burden, not decreased it. That is not partnership. That is not protection. That is spotlight hogging without any of the responsibility that comes with the spotlight. Piece number 4. When Remy Ma dropped a freestyle addressing the situation, reportedly titled around the ever since you left me energy, when the internet lit up with reactions. When Easy the Block Captain was out here reportedly claiming Papoose knew about the affair for years and was allegedly bugging Remy's car, Papoose's response was, according to reporting from outlets like Hot 97 and Complex, a limited denial, a brief statement, and back into the shadows. No sit-down interview cycle. No exhaustive interviews. No taking the stand. And every single one of these pieces of evidence, individually, could maybe be excused. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was on a project. Maybe he was doing the mature thing and staying silent. But when you line them up back to back to back, the pattern is undeniable, and the pattern is that every time the heat rises on this situation, Papoose disappears, and every time the temperature cools down, he reappears just long enough to post a picture with Claressa on a beach somewhere. That is not a partner. That is a passenger. And oh, do I have more for you? Because the surface evidence is the easy part. The surface evidence is what anybody with a phone and a Google search bar can put together in an afternoon. What is coming up next is the part that the stands really do not want to hear, the part that ties the industry conversation into the personal conversation, the part where you start to see that the reason he is missing is not because he is quiet by nature. It is because he cannot afford, financially and reputationally, to say anything on the record right now. And when we get to the section on his actual professional situation, on what he is really protecting, on the deal structure that has been quietly determining every move he makes, you are going to understand this entire situation on a level you have not been given before. Stay with me, because this next layer is where it stops being gossip and it starts being math. Let us go to the cultural layer, because this is where the story stops being about 2 people and starts being about how an entire community reads the silence. Claressa Shields is not some random woman. Claressa Shields is a globally recognized name. She has fought on the biggest cards. She has fought at Little Caesars Arena in her hometown of Flint, Michigan, in front of tens of thousands of people. She has been on the cover of major publications. She has been interviewed by every major sports outlet on the planet. When Claressa Shields walks into a room, she brings a following, a market, a story. And what has been happening around her in the culture is that every major hip-hop platform has been running commentary segments on this situation. The Breakfast Club has covered it. Charlemagne the God has covered it, with clips of Claressa calling out MZ Shinika being shared on his official pages. The Shade Room has run multiple posts about it. Hip Hop DX, Complex, Hot 97, The Griot, The Shadow League, every single major outlet in the culture has been publishing on this. Eva Marcel, on record, stepped in to defend MZ Shinika, the radio host who asked the question, saying the question itself was a legitimate journalistic question and that Claressa's reaction was disproportionate. That is a cultural signal. That is a woman in the culture, publicly, saying the question deserved an answer. And Papoose has not stepped up to provide that answer. Then you have the second cultural layer, which is the reaction from Remy Ma's camp. Remy is not a random rapper. Remy is one of the most respected female rappers of the last 25 years. She has a battle-tested reputation. She has connections up and down the industry. And when Remy dropped commentary on the situation, reportedly in freestyles, reportedly in interviews, reportedly in specific statements about the TuneCore situation, about Papoose allegedly needing her platform to solidify his own job, about the alleged pattern of behavior that led to the divorce, that landed in the culture with weight, because Remy has cultural equity that Papoose, at this stage of his career, simply does not. The culture, generally, does not doubt Remy the way it doubts a lot of women in these situations. She has earned the benefit of the doubt through 2 decades of consistent work. So when she says something specific and pointed, the culture leans in. And when Papoose responds with silence or with a brief denial that does not match the specificity of her claims, the culture reads that silence as confirmation. That is the third piece of cultural evidence, the way the community itself has been interpreting the silence. Go into any comment section on any post about this situation. Go into any group chat where people talk about hip-hop. Go into any barbershop conversation. The consensus across the board is that Papoose is hiding and that Claressa is being made to carry a weight that is not hers to carry. That kind of unified cultural reading does not happen by accident. That happens when the actual behavior lines up with the interpretation. Then you have the fourth piece, which is the reaction from battle rap and the underground community. Easy the Block Captain is a respected name in the battle rap world. When he came out and reportedly said Papoose knew about the alleged affair for years, that landed in a specific corner of the culture that Papoose used to be respected in, the lyricist corner, the pen corner, the he can actually rap corner. And when that corner of the culture starts openly siding against you, that is a signal. That is not the mainstream turning on you, which is one thing. That is your original base, the people who defended you when nobody was listening to your mixtapes, starting to question the story you are selling. And the fifth piece is the way this has bled into the boxing world. Because Claressa is not just a hip-hop story anymore. She is a boxing story. And when you have boxing writers, sports commentators, and people who cover the fight game starting to ask why this man is publicly attached to one of the biggest names in women's boxing, but never actually available to speak on the record about it, you are looking at a story that has crossed into territory Papoose does not have the infrastructure to control. Now, to be fair, and I want to be honest here, there is a counterargument that a lot of Papoose supporters have made, and that counterargument is that he is being mature by staying quiet during divorce proceedings, that anything he says can be used against him in court, that the responsible move is to let the legal process play out. And on paper, in a courtroom lawyer sense, that sounds reasonable. But here is why that counterargument falls apart the moment you look at the actual behavior. If he was staying quiet for legal reasons, he would be quiet across the board. He would not be posting his girlfriend on Instagram. He would not be showing up at press conferences with his hands all over her. He would not be attending her 30th birthday party in a public setting where everybody has cameras. He is not being quiet. He is being selectively visible. He is loud when it benefits him and silent when it costs him. And that is not a legal strategy. That is a survival strategy. Which brings us to the part of this video that changes the entire conversation. Now let us shift gears completely, because everything I have said so far is the surface and the culture, and the real story is underneath both. The real story is business. The real story is money. The real story is the professional situation Papoose has been in for the last several years, and how every one of his personal moves lines up with a specific professional pressure point that most people are not aware of or have not connected. Papoose was named the head of hip-hop at TuneCore back in January of 2023. That is a real, reported, verifiable fact. TMZ covered it, TuneCore's own official channels celebrated it, and Papoose has done interviews on Drink Champs and other platforms discussing the role. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a big win. Head of hip-hop at a major music distribution platform. That is a title. That is a corporate role. That is stability. But here is what the reporting has suggested, and what Remy Ma herself has claimed on record in interviews, and what makes this situation so much more complicated than the "he's just a rapper" framing. Remy has publicly stated, reportedly, that Papoose's TuneCore situation was structured in a way where his compensation was tied to subscriptions he could drive to the platform through his network. She has said, on record, that he wanted her to post to her millions of followers to subscribe to TuneCore because his check was tied to that referral engine. She has said, reportedly, that he was in between jobs when he took this role and that he needed her platform, her audience, and her name to make the role viable. Now Papoose has pushed back on parts of this narrative. He has said the deal is different from how Remy described it. He has said he is a hard worker. He has said he came from the bottom. And in fairness, we do not have the full contract. We do not have the compensation structure in writing. So I want to be careful here. I am giving you what has been reported, what has been claimed on record by the parties involved, and what the pattern of behavior seems to suggest. But here is the deeper point. Even if you take Papoose's version at face value, even if the deal is exactly what he says it is, the professional position he is in requires him to maintain a certain public image. It requires him to be associated with success. It requires him to be seen alongside major names in the culture. Because if you are the head of hip-hop at a distribution platform, your value to that platform is measured in the artists you can attract, the deals you can facilitate, the visibility you can generate. That is a job where your personal brand is your professional inventory. Now think about what that means in the context of everything we have just discussed. If his personal brand is his professional inventory, then every time he has to speak publicly on a losing narrative, a cheating narrative, a divorce narrative, you don't do anything for a living narrative. He is not just damaging his personal reputation. He is damaging his professional value proposition. Every time he goes on the record with a version of the story that gets picked apart within 24 hours, he is making it harder to walk into a boardroom next quarter and pitch himself as the guy who can attract talent. So the silence is not a coincidence. The silence is a business decision. The silence is him protecting the only thing standing between him and having to explain to a completely different set of people why he is not worth what they are paying him. Layer 2 of the business analysis is his relationship to Claressa's brand. Claressa Shields is a rising, marketable, globally recognized athlete. Being in her orbit, whether he is her manager, her partner, her friend, or her acquaintance, puts him near a spotlight that his own career has not been able to generate in years. And here is the uncomfortable question that Remy raised, that MZ Shinika raised, that Claressa herself had to publicly deny. What is the actual professional relationship? Claressa has publicly said Papoose is not her manager, does not get a percentage of her fight checks, is not with her for a living situation. She has been very clear about that. But the question kept getting asked for a reason. The question kept getting asked because the optics, him at her press conferences, him at her birthday parties, him at her fights, read like the optics of somebody positioning themselves inside her business machinery. And when the woman herself has to publicly clarify 3 separate times that this is not the case, that tells you the perception is loud enough to require correction. And Papoose being missing from those corrections is the third layer. Because if he is not benefiting professionally from her brand, he is the person best positioned to say so. If the relationship is purely personal, he could clarify that in 5 seconds on his own Instagram. And he does not. Which leaves the perception running, which keeps the questions coming, which keeps Claressa having to defend him, which keeps the entire situation alive in the culture. That is not the behavior of a man who has nothing to gain from the ambiguity. That is the behavior of a man who is letting the ambiguity work for him while somebody else takes the reputational damage that comes with it. And here is the truth bomb. The part 1 promised you at the top of this video, the part that changes how you read every single move Papoose has made for the last 18 months. Papoose is not silent because he is respectful. Papoose is not silent because he is mature. Papoose is not silent because he is protecting his court case. Papoose is silent because every single time he has opened his mouth on the record about this situation, the story he has told has been contradicted within days by somebody with more credibility than him. When he denied cheating, Remy came out with a specific, detailed, on-record account of what allegedly happened. When he framed himself as the wronged husband, Easy the Block captain reportedly came out and said Papoose knew about the alleged affair for years and was allegedly surveilling Remy's car. When he framed himself as a successful executive, Remy came out and reportedly said his role at TuneCore was tied to subscription referrals and that he had needed her audience to make it viable. Every time this man has spoken, somebody has answered back with receipts. And at some point, if you are a strategist, if you are a survivor, if you are somebody who understands that your public credibility is your professional currency, you make the decision to stop giving people ammunition. You go quiet. You let your partner take the heat. You let the news cycle move on. You wait for the next thing to happen so people stop talking about you. That is the strategy. That is what we are watching in real time. And I want everybody to understand the weight of what that means. It means Claressa Shields, a world champion, one of the greatest boxers alive, a woman who has spent her entire career building her name through her own labor, her own sacrifice, her own discipline, is being used as a human buffer for a man who cannot afford to speak for himself. It means every microphone she stands in front of, every uncomfortable question she absorbs, every viral clip of her defending this relationship is a shield in the most literal sense of the word. A shield between Papoose and the consequences of his own choices. And the most disrespectful part of it is that he has never publicly, on the record, thanked her for it, defended her from the questions she has been getting, or stood next to her at a mic to answer even one of them. Reportedly, when the situation with Remy Ma began to fall apart, when the alleged infidelity narrative began to circulate, when the stories started to spiral, Papoose's response was to release music, to post pictures, to keep moving. He did not sit down for a full accountability interview. He did not do a Breakfast Club sit-down where he answered every question. He did not do a Drink Champs where he laid out the timeline. And now that same pattern is repeating with Claressa. He is letting her carry it. He is letting her defend it. He is letting her fight it. And he is standing behind her, silently, letting her name be the one that trends, letting her reputation be the one that takes the hits, letting her be the one who has to explain, again and again, what he does for a living. That is the truth bomb. Papoose is not missing by accident. Papoose is missing by design. And every day he stays missing is another day he expects Claressa Shields to be strong enough for both of them. Now here is where the story turns, because as much as this video has been about what Papoose is not doing, the real hero of this entire situation is somebody who has been doing everything right the whole time, and that is Claressa herself. Think about what this woman has actually been carrying. She is training for world title level fights. She is building her boxing promotion. She is representing her city of Flint, Michigan, on a global stage. She is doing brand deals, podcast appearances, media obligations, and community work. She is one of the most decorated athletes this country has ever produced, and she is doing all of it while simultaneously being ambushed with questions about a man who cannot be bothered to show up and answer them himself. And through all of it, she has kept her composure. She has stood her ground. She has defended her relationship with the receipts she has access to. She has publicly clarified, in her own words, that Papoose is not her manager, that Papoose does not get her fight money, that Papoose is not with her for housing, that Papoose filed for divorce and is serious about her. She has told her side. She has held her line. And even when radio hosts have pushed her, even when other women in the culture like Eva Marcel have stepped in to disagree with her, even when the internet has piled on, she has continued to train, continued to fight, continued to build. That is what a champion looks like. That is the difference between somebody whose name means something and somebody whose name is borrowing from somebody else's meaning. Claressa Shields does not need Papoose to be legitimate. Papoose needs Claressa's proximity to stay relevant. And the more this situation plays out, the more obvious that imbalance becomes. The person who is disciplined is winning. The person who is disciplined is training. The person who is disciplined is showing up. And the person who is missing is proving, every single day, why he is missing. Because the moment he shows up, the moment he stands next to a microphone, the moment he opens his mouth on the record, the same pattern repeats. Somebody with more credibility answers back, and his story falls apart. So he stays gone. And meanwhile, the champ keeps training. The champ keeps fighting. The champ keeps winning. One person is out here defending a relationship in front of the entire culture by herself. The other person is out here posting pictures and hoping the story blows over. That is not a partnership. That is a one-woman rescue mission with a passenger she is refusing to admit is a passenger. And the culture is watching. The culture is not stupid. The culture sees who shows up. The culture sees who hides. And in the long run, in the way these stories always resolve, the The person who kept showing up is the person the culture remembers as the real one. Claressa Shields is going to be fine. Claressa Shields is going to keep winning fights. Claressa Shields is going to keep building her brand. And when this entire chapter is over, when the divorce is finalized, when the timeline settles, when the culture moves on to the next story, Claressa is going to be exactly where she was when this all started, at the top of her sport, standing on her own name. The only question is whether the person standing next to her at the end of it is the same person who was missing during the hardest parts of it. And I think, if we are being honest, we already know how that answer is going to look. And this is only the start. Because there are two specific things I want you to keep your eyes on in the next few weeks, and both of them are going to move this story into territory nobody has seen yet. First, watch the divorce timeline. The Papoose and Remy Ma divorce, filed in May of 2025, is still working its way through the courts, and every filing, every hearing, every deposition has the potential to produce documents that answer some of the questions we have been asking in this video for real, in ink, on the record. The moment those documents surface, and they will surface, because these things always do, the entire narrative around who did what, who owed what, and who is hiding what is going to shift, and it is going to shift fast. Second, watch for Papoose's next public move. Because at some point, the silence stops being a strategy and starts being a liability. At some point, the culture stops giving him the benefit of the doubt. At some point, his professional situation is going to require him to appear, to speak, to defend, to explain. And when that moment comes, we are going to be here to break down every second of it. Every word, every pause, every contradiction. I want you to make sure you do not miss any of that, because when this thing pops, it is going to pop big, and the people who have been watching this channel are going to see it coming a full 2 weeks before anybody else. So if you are not subscribed yet, hit the button. If you have not shared this video yet, share it. If you have not dropped a comment yet telling me where you think Papoose is really hiding and why, drop it now. This is your boy in the truth-telling seat, and we are just getting warmed up. And speaking of which, the very next video I want you to click as soon as this one ends is the one where we break down the exact moment Remy Ma allegedly figured out Papoose was cheating. The specific piece of evidence she reportedly kept in her back pocket for months while she was still playing her role, and the reason she waited until the exact moment she waited to burn the entire thing down. Because that story, that timeline, that receipt, that is the one that ties everything you just heard in this video together. And once you see how she played that hand, you are going to understand this entire situation on a level nobody in the culture is talking about yet. Click it now. We will see you over there.